Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the Financing Your Students' Education webinar today. My name is Meredith Call. I'm the Director for Parent and Family Services here at UAB. Before we get started, I'm going to walk you through a few things about using this Zoom system so that you know how everything works. First things first, you should see, just to kind of give you kind of an idea of what you should be seeing on your particular presentation and everything regarding how to utilize Zoom and all of its functions. At the top of your screen, you should be seeing something that looks like a green bar that's along those lines. That is going to be, if you were to move your mouse around, that'll let you know that you're part of the presentation, as well as that you're still connected to the Zoom presentation overall. A couple of things to note about how to utilize or ensure that you are chatting and sharing information with us. Because we do have all of the participants muted, so the only way to communicate with us is internally through the Zoom function. A couple of things to, again, note is if you do have any questions or you have any problems related to our audio settings, if you go down to the bottom here at the audio settings, you should be able to click on that and test your speaker issues and everything. If you continue to have problems, the original email you should have received from us after you registered for the webinar would have the information on how to call into the presentation so that you could hear us via the phone, because that should allow you to participate and hear everything that's being going on as well. A few other functions are just to know about is down here you have a couple of things at the very bottom of your screen. There is the lower and raise hand feature. You do have that to let us know that you're there. I will say the bigger function though to use is actually this Q&A function that is right here. That is going to be how you communicate with us to ask any questions you might have related to the webinar, or at the conclusion of the presentation that we have, we will be allowing you to ask questions related to your concerns. We would ask that you use this Q&A function and at that point to share those questions with us. When you click on the Q&A, you'll simply see where you can input your question. Once you do that, if a question such as how do I pay my students' tuition, which we'll obviously cover today, if you happen to see a question that gets typed in that is of interest that is a similar type question to what you have, if you see this little thumbs up icon that is right here on the lower right below the question, if you were to click that question like this and like it, or if the more people that like a question that you have the similar type answer, what that does on our side is it actually moves it to the top of the queue. So if there is one question that is of great interest to a lot of people, make sure you click the like button or that thumbs up button, because then that will make sure that it comes through to us at a higher or faster rate, because we see that that's a question that is of a lot of interest to everyone. Other things to just note is if you do need to change the view option, you can go up here again to the top of that green bar, and you can change original or exit full screen, just so that way if you need to navigate around your computer. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn over the presentation to our wonderful presenters that are here with us, and they are going to share with you all of the information related to actually what you're here to learn about, which is going to be the factor about learning about about financing your students' education. So I have Jeremy Dixon and Carly Wilson here from both our offices of One Stop and Financial Aid, and then they're going to walk you through all this key information you want to know. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over.
I'll get us started off. My name is Carly Wilson. I'm the Associate Director of Financial Aid here at UAB, and I'm just going to go through some topics related to federal financial aid. We are not covering many things to do with scholarships today. It is going to be all related to federal financial aid and the FAFSA mostly during my presentation. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started. Okay, there we go. Okay, so the FAFSA does become available every year on October 1st for the upcoming school year. The FAFSA is the federal application for financial aid, And so for this upcoming fall 2018 semester, the FAFSA has been available since last October of 2017. It will become available this October 1st for next school year that begins in fall 2019. We do encourage families and students to apply as early as possible, beginning on October 1st. We do have several awards that are limited dollar funding. They are awarded on sort of a first come, first served basis. So it is advisable to get that FAFSA in as soon as possible. We do, in our office this year, had a priority deadline of December 15th. So any FAFSAs processed before or received before December 15th were more likely to receive those limited dollar funds. Just some important things to note, the FAFSA does require financial information, and it uses a 2-year prior system. So for the 2017-18 year that we're just now finishing up, the FAFSA was going off of 2015 income information for the parents and students. For this school year we're about to start, 2018-19, the FAFSA has used 2016 tax information. And just to note, if you have had changes in your finances since those 2 years prior, we know that happens. Our office can work with you on that to adjust the FAFSA to a more current level of income, but you do still have to submit it initially using the 2-year prior information. Okay, and how you can view your financial aid awards. The student account online is called BlazerNet. The students should be familiarizing themselves with this if they haven't already. There is a page called My Financial Aid. There's a link there from BlazerNet that provides a summary of cost information and financial aid information if their FAFSA has already been processed. And if it hasn't been processed yet because of unmet requirements or extra things that the financial aid office might be asking for, then the My Financial Aid page is where you would want to go to see that. Sometimes we do ask for extra documentation, extra tax documents, just depending on the student and on the situation. So the student might not know that they have unmet requirements if they're not monitoring that My Financial Aid page in BlazerNet. So that's always a good idea to keep an eye on that. Students, the My Financial Aid page is also where students are going to be accepting or declining the awards that they're offered. So if the student is offered a grant, that is going to be accepted automatically by the system. But if they're offered a loan, they do have to use the My Financial Aid page in BlazerNet to accept or decline that loan. They have the ability to accept the whole amount, or if they don't need the whole amount of the loan that they've been offered, they can type in a smaller amount. But they do have to take action on those loan offers in order to receive them. Students are able to give parents a guest access to their BlazerNet account so that parents can help them with these types of things and help them view their requirements. And that is set up through BlazerNet as well. Okay, just a little bit more about federal financial aid. Some students are going to qualify for need-based aid, need-based grants, based on the information provided on the FAFSA. It's not purely related to your income, so there are a lot of factors that go into determining a student's eligibility for grants, which is funding that does not have to be paid back. So it's going to take a lot of the information you put on the FAFSA concerning your income and your family size and different demographics and things like that to determine the student's eligibility for need-based aid. Work study is also a need-based award that comes through the FAFSA. There is a question on the FAFSA that asks if a student is interested in work study, and if the student is interested, you can just answer yes to that question. And what this is it gives funding for students to work on campus. So if they receive a work study award, they will be able to search for a job through Hire a Blazer online, and they will be able to interview for an on-campus job and get that job and potentially earn money working around their class schedule. So it's a really good program. We definitely recommend that to students who are interested in earning a little bit more money while they're attending classes. The work study funding is one of those limited funding awards. So if your student is interested in work study, you definitely want to get that FAFSA submitted earlier. We do maintain a wait list for work study and for some of our other grants, as the federal government sends us more funding, we award students off the wait list. Student loans through the FAFSA are not limited funding. Students are always going to get loans offered to them just by doing the FAFSA. They're not credit-based, so there's not a credit check required in order to apply for those loans. The maximum eligibility is determined by the student's year in school, and I have those amounts on the next slide. And repayment is deferred, so students are not required to pay on these student loans as long as they are in school, half-time status or more. And there's also a 6-month deferment period after they either graduate or leave the university. Repayment is not required, but it is possible if you do want to get a head start on repaying those loans. There's no penalty for early repayment, but you won't be required to pay as long as the student is still in school. Here are the amounts for the student loans from the FAFSA. As I mentioned, it is awarded based on the student's year in school. So these amounts cannot be changed or increased. If you don't need the full amount of the loan offered, you can accept less than this, but it cannot be increased. And most of our students here are going to be dependent, just meaning that they're still dependent on their parents. But in cases that we do have independent students, such as older students or married students, then they would qualify for the independent loan amount. Okay, and there's just a little technical information for you. For the 17-18 school year, there is a fee that comes out of these loans of 1.069%. This is the amount that comes out of the loan before it pays out. So if the freshman accepted the $5,500 loan, that would be split in half automatically between the 2 semesters, half in fall and half in spring, and that 1% fee would come out of the loan first before it paid out. The interest rate on the loan is 4.45% fixed for the 17-18 school year. And just a quick note that these interest rates do usually get updated every year on October 1st. And that is updated by the Department of Education. So they may be a little bit different for the 18-19 school year, usually only by 0.1% or so. So it's not a big change, but that won't get updated until October 1st. Okay, and just a little bit about extra requirements to receive those loans. First-time loan borrowers do have to complete something called entrance counseling, and they also have to complete a master promissory note, and it's through this website, studentloans.gov, and that's just a screenshot of what the website looks like. Students log on to this website using the same FSA ID and password they created for the FAFSA, and so it is the exact same thing they used for the FAFSA. You don't have to create a new one. And the entrance counseling is just a short tutorial that students are walked through to help them understand their responsibility as loan borrowers. It'll just ask them a series of questions about loans and repayment and interest rates and that sort of thing, just to make sure they understand. The master promissory note is just an electronic signature confirming that the student understands the loan does have to be paid back after school. Okay, a little bit about loans for parents. So the loans that we just covered are student loans. If the student accepts those FAFSA loans, they do go into the student's name, but the federal government also offers loans that parents can take out for their students, and they're a little bit different. They are credit-based, whereas the FAFSA is not. So when you do the application for the parent loan, it does run a credit check, and it is not limited to any certain amount based on the student's year in school. It's only limited by the cost of attendance for that year. So we would, if you wanted the maximum amount of this loan, we would just award all the way up to the cost of attendance, minus any other loans or grants or scholarships the student already had. If the parent is denied based on their credit, you would still be given several options. The student can request that their own student loan gets increased. So for freshmen, their own student loan can get increased by $4,000 if the credit is denied the parent. The parent would also have an option to appeal the denial or have a co-signer and be approved in that way. So even if you are denied this Parent Plus loan, you still are given several options that you can pursue. And the Plus loan also has an origination fee and an interest fee, just like the FAFSA student loans do. And there is that information there. The Parent Plus loan is comparable in interest rate to a lot of private lenders, which the financial aid office here at UAB also processes private loans if you prefer to work with your bank. We don't recommend any lender in specific, but we can work with a private lender if you prefer that option. The Parent Plus loan does require repayment during school. It can be deferred like the student loans are while the student's in school, but you have to apply for that deferment, which is done on the application. But if you do not apply for that deferment, then repayment will begin 60 days after the loan is fully dispersed. So in general, those loans are going to be also split up equally between the fall and spring semesters. Half disperses in fall semester, the second half disperses at the beginning of the spring semester, and then 60 days after that second disbursement is when repayment would begin if you were not signed up for the deferment process. And this is where you can go to apply for that Parent Plus loan. Studentloans.gov note that it is the same website where the entrance counseling and the promissory note are signed, only this time the parent would be logging in to the website and not the student. That is a common mistake that we find, that the student logs in to apply for the loan, but because this is a parent loan in the parent's name, it does have to be the parent logging on in order to complete this application. Okay, so the disbursements of financial aid, whether that be loans or grants, is made on the first day of each semester. So the first day of the fall semester this year is August 27th. That is the day that the aid is going to pay out. And then the second half of the aid would pay out on the first day of the spring semester. Aid that is ready to pay, meaning all requirements have been completed, the entrance counseling and the master promissory note are done, there's no unmet requirements at all, will appear on the student's account as anticipated financial aid. It will just show that the bill is ready to be covered and that there are no issues there. If your student is receiving any outside scholarships, meaning scholarships that are not coming from UAB, but if they received a scholarship from their high school or from their church or anything like that that is outside of UAB, those scholarships do not post towards the student's account until the money, the check, is actually received by UAB. So that does not appear as anticipated financial aid. It just posts as soon as we receive the check. And for those of you who might work at UAB or have a spouse that works at UAB, anything like that, employee tuition assistance does not post until after the first day of class, usually a day or two after the first of class. Okay, and just a few things to note, a few important things. Students do not have to be making a certain GPA initially when they first come to UAB in order to receive federal financial aid. So it's not like a scholarship in that way where it's merit-based when the student first comes in. However, once they become a college student, they do have to maintain a certain level of academic progress in order to retain eligibility for financial aid. So they do have to maintain at least a 2.0 GPA and a 67% completion rate or higher in order to be eligible for those federal loans and grants. So if they drop below one or both of those standards, they will have a warning semester first, where we will notify them that they're below those standards and they will have one semester to bring themselves up. After that, they will go into a fail status where they will not be eligible for any federal financial aid. So they can regain their eligibility through bringing up their GPA and their completion rate, or they can appeal. So we do have an appeal process if a student has special circumstances that caused them to drop below those standards. There is an appeal process that they can follow to regain eligibility for federal aid. We also here at UAB have the Vulcan Material Academic Success Center, which helps students create success plans for finishing their degree, helps with tutoring, a lot of resources available there for students who are needing academic help. Okay, and just a few more helpful links for you guys. nslds.ed.gov, the first website listed there, is extremely helpful. It gives, it's basically a database of all the loans that are taken out in a person's name. So once your student starts borrowing loans, they will be able to see their loan totals on this website, and it's logged into with the FSA ID and password the same way as the other government websites. And that way they can know real-time updated how much in loans they've borrowed throughout the course of their college career. We also have Financial Aid TV, which is a series of videos that have answers to frequently asked questions. It's very useful. If you guys have any questions, they're organized by topic, so it is a great resource to use. We also have a website, of course, uab.edu/financial-aid. That also has frequently asked questions. It has more details on policies like the SAP policy and details on the awards and many different things. For more information on repayment options, those interest rates, when they're going to update on October 1st, if you're interested in checking out the new interest rates, studentaid.ed.gov, which is a Department of Education website. Very useful for that. Studentloans.gov was the website for entrance counseling, promissory note, and the Parent Plus loan. Studentaid.gov, the general Department of Education website as it relates to federal financial aid. Okay, and at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy Dixon, who is the director of our One Stop here at UAB. He's going to take over from here.
All right, good afternoon. Like Carly said, my name is Jeremy. I'm the director of the One Stop, and so also wanted to let you know that we will be answering the questions at the end of my portion of this presentation. So you can continue to send those in, and we will address those once I am through with my portion. But wanted to make you all aware of different payment options that we have here at UAB. That we have two that you can choose from, and these apply only to fall and spring semesters. We have a traditional payment plan, which means 100% would be due, or we have a payment plan option where it's divided over 3 separate dates throughout the semester. And so the first one is the traditional plan, and that is where 100% is due the week before classes start. This is we call it traditional because it's very common amongst other universities throughout the country. And so you would pay 100% at the first payment deadline, which again is roughly a week before classes start. If you do not pay 100% completely, then your student will automatically be enrolled in the Blazer Flex plan, which is the payment plan divided over 3 different or 3 different dates throughout the semester as well. Students have received a financial aid award notification, meaning that you've completed all the requirements and you see that it is marked on your account balance or your statement, excuse me, as anticipated financial aid. Means that you've completed everything you need to complete. We know that you're receiving financial aid, and we are basically crediting that towards your account before the disbursement date, like Carly said, and we are factoring that into what you owe before, again, the disbursement date. But we will make sure that that is credited there towards your account and factored into your account balance, what is due on the first payment deadline. The Blazer Flex plan is where it's divided over 3 different dates into 3 different installments. There is a $25 enrollment fee for this, and again, you do not have to elect to participate in this. You simply just do not pay 100% of your account balance, and then we take care of the rest for you, dividing it over those 3 different dates. They're designed to be about a month apart, and they're going to end before registration begins for the next semester. For each one of these dates that is missed, meaning that you do not pay what is owed on each payment deadline, a $50 late fee is charged to the account balance at that time. And also, each subsequent billing is the term balance divided by the number of remaining billing periods in a semester, and I'll give you a quick example of what that looks like here on this next screen after this. Since the first payment is due 7 days prior to the beginning of classes, a common question is, will my financial aid be applied earlier to my account? And yes, we've kind of gone over that, meaning that it will show up as anticipated financial aid. And again, that means you've completed everything that you need to complete in order to receive that financial aid. If you do not receive and see anticipated financial aid on your student account, That means that there may be some outstanding requirements that you need to fulfill, and I would encourage you to go into BlazerNet under the My Financial Aid page to see if there's anything outstanding that requires your attention. Refunds, meaning like if the student is receiving more aid than their account balance is, those refunds are typically issued the first week of classes, and you should see those come in the form of a check or direct deposit if the student has signed up for direct deposit. Similar to financial aid, if a student is receiving any external funding such as PACT or 529 or VA benefits or an outside scholarship, if we know about those and we have already processed those will also be listed as anticipated on the account summary as well. So how are the payments calculated for each deadline in the Flex plan? Well, they're basically divided over 3 different dates. So if we look at this example here on the screen, the student has $4,905 in term charges, and they are receiving $3,216 in credits, and that could be the form, again, of financial aid or scholarships and things like that we're aware of, which gives them a remaining balance of $1,689. Well, we're basically counting that towards the first payment deadline of August 20th and dividing the remaining balance over the 2 subsequent payment deadlines. So 1,689 divided by 2 at that point is $844.50, and that is what the student owes over the final 2 remaining payment deadlines. Here's a quick schedule of the payment deadlines for this year, or for this semester and the next semester. So for the fall, the first payment is due on August 20th. And then again, if you're utilizing the traditional payment plan, you would pay 100% at that time. If you're wanting to take advantage of the Blazer Flex plan, you would only pay 1/3, and then the rest would be divided over the final remaining 2 payment deadlines, which would be September 24th and October 22nd. In the spring, the first payment deadline is January 2nd, then February 4th, and then March 4th. There's also a program that I want to make you all aware of, and it's called Bucks for Books, and this is only for those students who are receiving an excess and an anticipated federal financial aid. If they're receiving an excess in financial aid, or their aid exceeds what their account balance is, then they can utilize up to $1,000 of those funds to purchase books on August 22nd at our UAB bookstore, Barnes & Noble. They can sign up for this program at uab.edu/Bucks for Books, and you can also see more information there. A quick example of how we use this, or how a student can utilize this, is if the student has a balance of $7,308 and they have an anticipated financial aid of $8,300, well, their excess financial aid is $992. This student elected to only use $500 of that refund to purchase books, and that refund, or that $500, will be added to their one card in the form of Blazer Bucks for them to go to the UAB Barnes & Noble bookstore to purchase books on August 20th if they elected to do so. The remaining $492 would be issued to the student during the first week of classes, again in the form of a refund, whether that be a check or direct deposit if the student has signed up for direct deposit. Again, you can go to uab.edu/Bucks for Books to see more information about this, and the student can sign up there as well. Our contact information, if you have questions, you can email us at onestop@uab.edu. If you wish to, if you have questions about scholarships, you can email scholarships@uab.edu. The financial aid office, their email address is finaid@uab.edu. And most of the time, our offices on campus are open 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. And that pretty much concludes the presentation. And so we are going to begin the Q&A portion here, and Meredith is going to help moderate that for us.
Yes, again, just as a reminder, if you would make sure that if there are questions that are out there that you have similar interest in, please make sure you click that like button to push it up towards the top of the queue. But there are a few things that have already kind of pushed through that have gotten several likes already. So the first one is, if a student or parent wants to get a loan for just one semester at a time, can they ask for only the one semester amount, I'm assuming, to be dispersed, and then reapply before the second semester?
Okay, Yes, you can do that. For the FAFSA, it wouldn't necessarily cause a problem. We can disperse the aid in whatever way you wish. If you're applying for a Parent Plus loan or a private loan, I would not recommend that because those loans are credit-based. So you don't want to be applying 3 or 4 times during one school year because it's going to hit your credit every time. So that's why for the Parent Plus loan, we recommend just go ahead and apply for the fall and spring at the same time. And that way you'll get that half in fall, half in spring. We can always change those amounts too. If you ask for a certain amount, you've already got approved for fall and spring, but then when the spring semester comes around, you find you need a little bit more. Then at that point you could apply again. But we just don't want you to have to be having multiple hits on your credit. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend going a semester at a time, no.
Okay, next question. And I also want to say, I know we've also got participants that are listening via Facebook Live. So feel free to also type in your questions into the Facebook Live feature and the chat feature, and we will be able to answer those as part of this presentation as well. So the next question that popped up that's a lot of interest is, does the money the student gets from work study go directly to tuition, or does it come in the form of a check?
Okay, good question. It does come in a form of a check to the student. So it is just like a normal job. The student gets paid bi-weekly directly to them, usually via direct deposit. It does not pay directly towards tuition.
Great. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and just go down through some of these questions that we've that have come in over the past little while. Can a student still apply for work study if they initially put not working on their FAFSA?
You probably should just email the financial aid office in that instance, finaid@uab.edu, and ask us to update your FAFSA or add your student to the work study wait list. It would probably be too much of a headache for you to go change the FAFSA yourself. The easiest option would probably be to just email us and ask us to put your student on the work study wait list.
Wonderful. If the student for the student to get a loan, there's one down a little bit. Apologize there. For the student to get a loan, do they accept the award in BlazerNet to then go to the studentaid.gov website and apply for a loan in that amount, or does accepting the loan apply them for the loan?
Okay, I think I understand what you're asking. The FAFSA is the application for student loans, and that is what comes through BlazerNet. So it's not going to be, there's not going to be a loan offer in BlazerNet if you have not already completed your FAFSA. So you do the FAFSA first. That gets you the loan offers. Then you accept them through BlazerNet. That is the FAFSA process. Then if the parent wanted to do a parent loan through studentloans.gov or something, or a private loan, that would be an additional process. But the FAFSA is applied for first, and then when the student is offered loans from FAFSA, then that is when they go into BlazerNet and accept those loans.
Next one that popped up that's got a few different people saying that they've got interest in it is, in what outside lending companies, i.e. Sallie Mae, Wells Fargo, Discover, do you recommend? And then a secondary part of that, are there any in-state institutions offering 0% or low interest loans?
We do not recommend any private lender in specific. There's too many different variables. It's going to depend on your own credit score, anything like that, and in what repayment plans you're interested in. There's too many different variables for us to recommend a certain company. However, those companies mentioned, Sallie Mae, Wells Fargo, Discover, Regions, we do work with all of those companies. We also work with smaller local banks. So that really is just going to depend on what lender you prefer to work with based on credit and repayment plans and that sort of thing. For the second part of that question, I do not know of any loan servicers that offer 0% interest rates. And in general, the FAFSA loans, the student loans from the FAFSA, are going to be the lowest interest loans available.
Next up is going to be on October 1st, 2018, do we fill it out the FAFSA for the upcoming 2019-2020 school year?
Yes, that is when that becomes available. We recommend, like I mentioned in my presentation, we recommend doing it as soon as possible. You do not have to do it right on October 1st, but that is the day that it becomes available. and doing it earlier is always best.
There seems to be a couple of different questions in there about is it possible to apply for FAFSA now, essentially? If they haven't previously applied, can they apply for FAFSA at this point, also known as applying for student loans? Can they do so now if they haven't already done so?
Yes, absolutely. There is no deadline on the FAFSA for the 18-19 school year. Now, if you are referring to the 17-18 school year that's about to wrap up, it is too late to apply for the FAFSA for that school year. But for the upcoming 18-19 school year, it is still available. It will be available all throughout the school year. So even if you didn't apply until next spring, it would still be available. So no, there is no deadline on applying for that.
Great. There is one that's popping up about that's been a frequent asked question. We have a campus, it's related to a dining fee. We have a campus dining fee of $225. What is this for? Because we've already purchased a meal plan.
Sure. The campus dining fee is charged to all students that are enrolled in classes beyond 12 hours or more. And that actually is money that can be used across campus where they accept dining dollars. And so that is just something that is charged to all students. There will be a campus dining presentation next week that Meredith will also be hosting as well. And so they'll actually go into this in more detail during that time. And so I would be looking for something that announces that and go ahead and sign up for that, because that'll provide you some really good information about the different dining options as far as meal plans that we have on campus, the different locations where that can be utilized, and different locations where the dining dollars and Blazer bucks can be utilized as well.
To again further clarify, that $22.25 fee, one, as Jeremy said, we will have a great presentation next week covering everything, and the $225 fee, while it's a fee, students will be able to utilize that money.
Yes, at different locations across campus.
It is not just a fee that goes to a blank pot. It is accessible to the students. Okay, there's multiple people asking if it's possible to receive a copy of the presentation. Yes, we will be posting it out on our website within the next week. It is being run on Facebook Live as we speak, so you also can go back and access it almost immediately. And then we're going to go ahead and move on to some of these other questions. So yes, and then if you feel the need to have it emailed to you, please feel free to email families@uab.edu. How soon do they know if they get the Parent Plus loan after applying on studentloans.gov?
The processing time for the Plus loan is pretty quick. We usually receive the application after it's been submitted within 2 or 3 days, sometimes even 1 or 2 days. And then we usually have it posted towards the student account in just another maybe 2 or 3 days. So the total processing time on the Parent Plus loan is less than a week.
Great. Does FAFSA take into account if you have multiple children?
Yes, that's a good question. The FAFSA does that automatically. That's not even something that our office has to do. The FAFSA does that automatically, and the FAFSA gives us a number called EFC, Estimated Family Contribution, and the lower that number is, the more eligible for grants and need-based aid students are. So when multiple children are put on the FAFSA, the EFC number automatically goes down, which increases your eligibility for need-based aid and grants.
Carly, in your presentation, you were talking about, there was a thing in there about completion rate related to maintaining eligibility for a student's scholarship or student's financial loan. There's a question about what does a completion rate actually mean?
Yes, of course. So students, if they receive an F in a class or if they withdraw from a class after the add drop date. So every semester, there is an add drop date a week or 2 weeks or so out from the first day of class where students can make any changes to their schedules that they might need to make. But after that add drop date, if they drop a class, and they will basically get a W on their transcript, just meaning withdrawal. So any Fs or Ws that a student receives counts against their completion rate. So all students would start out at 100%, but then as they drop classes after the add drop date, or receive Fs, their completion rate is going to go down. And then hopefully it would always stay above that 67%, but that is how they might drop below the 67% by either receiving Fs or Ws.
Okay. Great, thank you. What are the dates for the fee deadlines? One more time, Jeremy. I think that's when you pay. I'm going to interpret that as meaning that your dates again for the.
Sure. So like the dates for our payment deadline dates are, I can actually go back and put that on the screen for you. Are actually on the screen right there. They are actually posted on the academic calendar, so uab.edu/academic calendar. You can also find it on the website uab.edu/when to pay.
They're all also in the family calendar that was distributed at orientation throughout this year. And so if you did not get a family calendar, please feel free to contact the Parent Family Services office and we'll happily get one to you. Okay. There's also another question about another type of fee that's out there associated with a student's account, and it is a student athletic fee of $25. What is this going to if they're not involved in athletics?
This actually is a fee that was voted on by our student body a few years ago to support athletics here on campus, such as football, rifle, and bowling, specifically to bring those athletic programs back to campus. And so that is something that money goes towards, is continuing to support those programs and to keep them here. And again, it was just something that was voted on by the student body that they would contribute to keep them here on campus.
The anticipated scholarship amount is less than what it will be once classes and lab fees are determined after add drop. If the amount paid for all fees is by August 20th is less than what is owed, will there be a penalty or a fee, or should the correct scholarship be applied and any fees canceled? It's a very long question there for.
Sure. So I'm assuming that maybe this particular scholarship may pay for all tuition and fees, and fees related to tuition. And if that is the case, then that scholarship will be adjusted after the add drop deadline. And the reason they do that is because students can continue to adjust their schedule up until that point, and they want to make sure that they apply the appropriate amount. And if there is any kind of fee, late fee, or the Blazer Flex enrollment fee associated with that, they will have that removed if they've paid for everything other than what is not covered by tuition and fees, or other than what was not covered at that time and has since been adjusted.
Thank you. If a student has accepted a FAFSA loan and the parent has accepted the Parent Plus loan, when will that be reflected in the anticipated payments?
Okay, so the FAFSA does have to be processed first before the Plus loan can be processed. So if everything is good to go with your FAFSA, meaning all requirements have been completed and your FAFSA award is out there, that is the point at which the Parent Plus loan can be awarded. So if your FAFSA has been applied for and the school's received it, and your Parent Plus loan has been applied for, but it's still not showing as anticipated payment, that might need to be a point at which you contact the office, finaid@uab.edu, and you can just check on the status of that. You might also want to check your BlazerNet account because there might be a message or a flag there for an unmet requirement. Because as I mentioned earlier, the turnaround time, if everything is in order, is pretty quick, just maybe 4 or 5 days. So if it's been longer than that, then you may want to check and make sure there's nothing wrong with the application or there's no unmet requirements.
I'm going to do a couple of combined things with some questions about whether some of these fees that we see up that we've been discussing, if they are a semester fee or a one-time fee, as well as then there's another question about if you are able to just pay your tuition or all fees with a traditional credit card.
Sure. So all the fees that you see applied to your account are going to be semester fees. We don't do a yearly fee. They're all going to be done by semester. So the athletic fee, the dining fee, the Blazer Flex enrollment fee, those are all charged each semester. And yes, you can pay for those. You can pay for tuition or anything on your account all in one lump sum during the traditional payment plan using a credit card if you'd like. That option is provided to you for the student in BlazerNet, and for the parent, if they've been given parent guest access, they can pay for it through that portal as well.
Related to the Flex plan, when is the setting up the fees and everything? When is the $25 due? Is it attached to the first payment, or is it prorated out as 33%? And then in addition to that, there's also a question about on the flex plan. If you choose the flex plan, are you not making a payment on August 20th?
Sure. So the flex plan, the August 20th payment deadline is for both payment options, whether you're choosing traditional payment plan or the Blazer Flex plan. If you're going to pay traditionally using the traditional payment plan on August 20th, you would pay 100%. If you're using the Blazer Flex plan, you would only pay 33%. At that time, after the first payment deadline, the Blazer Flex fee would go on to that student's account because we realize that you have not paid 100% and you are then taking advantage of the Blazer Flex plan.
Got it. Excellent. Several people are interested to know, like, how do we estimate the cost of books?
We build into our cost of attendance $600 for books per semester. That's just an estimate. It's probably a pretty fair estimate. For first-time freshmen, it might be a little cheaper than that. The more expensive books do tend to be towards the student's junior and senior year. So maybe a safe estimate would be in the $400 to $600 range.
Thank you. If a student qualifies for work study and applies for jobs on a Hire a Blazer, are they guaranteed help in getting a job?
The program is set up for the student to be pretty independent. So we are not necessarily helping the student get a job. The Hire a Blazer portal is for them to look for a job. All jobs on campus are posted there. So they search through the jobs, they pick the ones that look appealing to them, and they contact the office, they set up an interview, they go for the interview, they do all of that themselves. So we are not necessarily helping them get a job. We're just posting the information so that they can look through it and apply for the jobs that seem appealing to them.
Here's one, this is going back to that $225 dining fee that we were discussing earlier. If your student isn't living on campus, why are they being assessed that particular dining option, that dining fee option?
Again, the dining fee is charged to all full-time students, that regardless of whether they're living on campus or not. Should there be an option? I can't really answer that because I don't get to make those decisions. But unfortunately, that is something that is charged to every student. But fortunately, you can use that money across campus, whether it be Starbucks, Panera Bread, any of the on-campus dining locations. They can utilize that money and it doesn't go to waste.
The university does this to ensure that all students have the ability to get food at some point in time, whether here on campus, that they don't have to be prepared with other funding options because it is already there as a declining balance. There's some questions that have popped up about what type of fees are covered under the Presidential Recognition Scholarship.
Sure. To my knowledge, it's all fees associated with tuition. It's not necessarily going to cover dining fees, but only those fees associated with tuition. I would encourage you to double check that with scholarships, but that is my understanding.
Carly, just to reiterate, how long does it take for a loan to typically be processed?
The FAFSA processes in approximately a week or so. Once you submit it through FAFSA.gov, we would receive the application maybe within 2 to 3 business days. If we do not need any extra documentation, it's going to be processed and the student's going to get their award pretty quickly, maybe within just another 2 or 3 days. However, if there are unmet requirements, some of you might have had to turn in documents for a process called verification. That's a process by which we sometimes ask for extra tax documents. So those things can delay processing of the FAFSA. And the time then is just determined purely on how long it takes us to receive those documents. So that's just why it's important to be checking BlazerNet to make sure that you don't have any outstanding requirements out there that might delay processing time.
There is a really great question out there that if a student is going to have excess funds after an outside scholarship is applied, how will they get to that excess?
The student, I think Jeremy mentioned briefly the refund process. So we definitely recommend students to set up direct deposit. That can be set up through the BlazerNet account. It can be, you just will be putting in bank account information there. It can be the student's bank account information or the parents'. It doesn't have to be the student's. That is the quickest way. The direct deposit refunds are processed within just a day or two of the funds paying out. If you opt for the paper check, then it's obviously going to take longer because it's going to have to go through the regular mail. So we recommend everyone to set up the direct deposit through BlazerNet to get those excess funds.
There's a clarification question, I think, specifically related to FAFSA, trying to explain, understand, like the question is FAFSA a free financial aid or a student loan?
Okay. Yes, I can clarify. So the FAFSA is a free application, if that helps. And so it doesn't, you're not charged to do the application. And then within that application, the student is applying for student loans and grants and work study. So it's all of those things all in one application. Students are guaranteed to be offered loans from doing the FAFSA. The grants and the work study is what is going to be more dependent upon the financial information you put on the FAFSA. So it's not necessarily guaranteed, but you are applying for all of those things in one application.
Next year, there's a question about, again, related to the FAFSA, just making sure about whether or not you have to apply for it each year, or is it continuous once you've done it, you've applied one time?
Okay, that's a good question. The FAFSA does have to be reapplied for every year. So every year on October 1st, the new application is going to become available. The website does give you an option to start completely from scratch or renew. And if you click the renew option, it is going to auto load a lot of your information from the previous year, pretty much everything except the financial information that will have to be updated, but it would auto fill in everything else. So that kind of helps a little bit, but it does have to be redone every year.
I see that there's a few more questions that have popped in related to the dining fee. Again, I want to highlight the fact that we will be doing a presentation next week about the on-campus housing and dining fee, and so we're going to defer all remaining questions related to the dining fee to that particular webinar, or if you contact the office families@uab.edu, we will happily answer those questions for you, but for the interest of time, since we just have a few more minutes left in this presentation, I do want to stick to just the remaining questions related to financial aid, scholarships, disbursements, payments, et cetera. But I promise we will happily answer those questions next week during our presentation, the webinar, and then as well as through, if you email and contact the Parent Family Services office. Is there any difference, Carly, in how students who are transfer students, how their aid is dispersed?
No, there is no difference. If they already did a FAFSA at their previous institution, they would have to go back onto that application and add UAB to it. They're not required to do a completely new FAFSA. They can just add UAB to it and resubmit it, and then we'll receive it. But they will be processed and awarded the same as any other student.
Great, thank you. Jeremy, this is a payment question.
Mm-hmm.
Can you begin making payments, can you make payments now, beginning now, towards the balance due by the third balance due date? I guess.
Oh, yeah. Basically, can you prepay a towards a payment deadline? No, like, so if you owe like $4,000 and a payment is made of $3,000 at this first payment deadline, giving you a balance of $1,000 left, then $500 will be owed at each subsequent payment deadline. There's no way to really just pay the balance due for the first and second and only have a third payment due. It's just going to divide whatever's remaining over how many payment deadlines are left.
There was a question that popped up about e-pay directly from their bank. Is that good? They know that they know that it's not an option. Do you think that that is something that will be happening in the future?
I can't say with any certainty if there will be a e-pay or I guess maybe like an e-check functionality. There may be an e-check functionality in the coming future. I don't think there will be an auto draft or anything like that because we don't like to store bank account information on our servers and things like that. So that hopefully answers that.
If you have the Parent Plus loan approved and there's still some money that's going to be owed afterwards, will after the final total, will the Parent Plus loan be updated to cover the rest, or do you have to reapply?
No, the financial aid office is not does not update awards automatically if a student still owes a balance. We only process it for the amount that you put on the application. So because this is a loan, we would never increase that without the parent's permission. So if you have applied for the Parent Plus loan and then it gets closer to the payment deadline and you realize it doesn't pay at all, you can either reapply online or you can contact our office and ask us to increase the loan. We would just have to have that in writing that you want it increased. Your credit check is valid for about 6 months, so it would not hit your credit again if we increased it if it was within that 6 months.
Here's a really great question that just popped up. Can you quickly explain the difference between subsidized versus unsubsidized loans?
Yes, of course. Subsidized loans are loans that do not accrue interest while the student is in school. The unsubsidized loans do accrue interest from the disbursement date. So those loans have the same interest rate, the 4.45 interest rate we saw on the presentation earlier. So they have the same interest rate. It's just that the subsidized loan does not begin accruing interest until after the student graduates. The unsubsidized loan, again, will begin accruing interest from the day that it pays out. So not from the day that you accept it. If you accept your loan offer today, it's not going to start accruing interest today. It will start accruing interest on the day that it pays out, the first day of classes.
What is the undergraduate online tuition fee and what does it cover?
Sure. The AS undergrad tuition online fee is basically the difference between the cost of a on-campus class and a online class. So it's roughly going to be, I think, especially for arts and sciences, which is the AS, about $84 per hour. And so that's what the difference is. It's kind of like an online tuition charge is what it is.
Back to that payment thing, was that a no to being able to pay early for a third payment date?
You cannot pay for a third payment date. What it does is every time you make a payment, it's just going to lower the amount owed at the remaining payment deadlines. So you can't, the only way to prepay or to pay on the third payment due date is just to do 100% and pay it all off on August 20th.
And then the student loans and Parent Plus loans go straight to the college at the deadline.
Yes, they do. So you guys are not going to have to handle that money. Anything from the FAFSA, the Parent Plus loan, a private lender, all gets paid to the university towards your student bill. And then if there was an excess amount, you would be issued the refund check afterwards, but you would not handle the money initially. It would come straight to the school.
Excellent. And then the last question for the day is if someone is only needing to accept a loan specifically for the spring semester, how do they only accept money for that semester since that's the only time that they need it?
Okay. In that situation, you would need to contact our office and we would have to update the award for you to spring only. That's not something you would be able to do through BlazerNet. We would have to change it in our system. So again, just contact us at finaid@uab.edu with your student's name and Blazer ID, and we can update the award to spring only for them.
Excellent. Okay, so this is going to be the very last question for the interest of time, but there's one last question about a new fee, and what is this? It's a CAS lab fee tier 2. What does that mean?
Sure, that is, so even though the student may not be in a traditional lab, that is basically allowing them to have access to different labs on campus, whether it be a math lab or a writing lab, but that's what that lab fee tier 2 is. When they register for courses in BlazerNet, they should see under each course what fee is associated with that particular course. And so when that particular person registered, a lab fee tier 2 was associated with that course, and that's why it's being charged to your son's account.
Excellent. Well, I want to say thank you very much to both Jeremy and Carly as far as participating in today's webinar. I also want to go ahead and share with you again, we've mentioned it a couple of different times, but there is a quick webinar that's going to be happening next week as well. We're going to be doing a presentation on campus living and dining. So it will help answer a lot of those questions that were shared earlier today. that related to the dining services, as well as also what it's like to live on campus and be a part of that community for our students in that regard. You can register now by going to our social media pages, either our Facebook page or Instagram. There will also be a newsletter that's going out first thing tomorrow that's got all of that information for registering for our webinar for next week. It is next Tuesday, August 7th at 11:30 a.m. But with that, I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of the day. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us at any point in time at the families.uab.edu account. We are really here to answer any questions that we can, or you can give us a call at 205-975-0684. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye-bye.